Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Testing Psychologist podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jeremy Sharp, licensed psychologist, group practice owner, and private practice coach. Many of y'all know that I have been using Therapy Notes as our practice EHR for over 10 years now. I've looked at others, and I just keep coming back to Therapy Notes because they do it all. If you're interested in an EHR for your practice, you can get 2 free months of Therapy Notes by going to thetestingpsychologist.com/therapy notes and enter the code TESTING. This podcast is brought to you in part by PAR. The NEO Inventory's normative update is now available with a new normative sample that is more representative of the current U.S. population. Visit parinc.com/NEO. Hey, folks, welcome to the podcast. I've got a fantastic guest here today. Christine Lee is the founder and CEO of Mentaya. Mentaya is a platform that automates out-of-network billing, eliminates the need for Superbills, and helps clients and clinicians get paid for out-of-network services. So she is driven by a commitment to mental health and a deep belief in empowering therapists. She started Mentaya to tackle the headaches of out-of-network billing, making it easier for therapists to collect their full cash rate while enabling clients to use insurance to get up to 80% back on private pay services. She believes that mental health clinicians can absolutely build thriving cash pay practices while playing a key role in expanding access to mental health care. Before Mentaya, Christine was a product manager at Google, where she focused on creating impactful, user-centered products in Google AI and YouTube. So she comes from an extensive background in tech, and as you'll see during the interview, has a real motivation and commitment to helping providers and clients in this whole insurance billing mess. You will also hear during the interview that we have been using Mentaya for several months now, at least the benefits checker, and have just found it to be super helpful and really increased our conversion ratio for private pay clients because they know what to expect and what they might get back from their insurance company. So hope you enjoy this conversation with Christine about Mentaya and making out-of-network billing a little easier. And like you know, this is the time of the year when I am recruiting for my mastermind groups. New cohorts will start in January 2025, probably mid-January. There are cohorts for beginner and intermediate and advanced folks, depending on where you're at in your practice development. And these are just group coaching experiences with accountability and support, really aimed at connecting you with other folks doing testing and running businesses and doing the best that you can in that process. So you can go to thetestingpsychologist.com/consulting and get more info. But for now, let's go to my conversation with Christine Lee from Mentaya. And as you will hear, if you want to try Mentaya for free for a month, there is a link in the show notes. So make sure and go check that out if you want to take a step toward simplifying out-of-network billing. Christine, hey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Yeah, this is awesome. I feel like I'm talking to a little bit of a celebrity, like you are, you play a big role in our practice here because we use Mentaya ourselves. And I feel, super grateful to get a little bit of your time. I know you've got a lot going on. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for those kind words. I've never been called a celebrity before, so that is an interesting thing to hear.
Well, here you go. A good way to start the morning. Well, I'll start the interview the same way I start everyone, which is just asking you why this is important to you. I mean, you have an interesting career in tech, I think, that we might get into, but you chose to go this direction with your experience. So I'd love to hear, why spend your time, energy, emotional energy on something like Mentaya?
Yeah, so I have thought about this a lot because you were right. I used to work in tech. I worked as a product manager at Google. And for me to have, left my very cushy job to try something like starting a company like Mentaya was definitely a big decision. And so for me, it definitely started with just like my interest in mental health. So I don't know how much my backstory but I,
I'd love to hear.
Okay. I went to a high school that had a lot of mental health issues, and this is kind of a trigger warning. We made national news for suicides in my
Ooh,
school. And so
okay.
this was back years ago when mental health wasn't really talked about. And, I had just started high school. I'd actually just moved there.
Mm,
And I don't even think I knew what mental health was because no one really talked about it back then. There's definitely a stigma around it. I think we just didn't really have that many resources or really know how to handle something like that. And so I wouldn't say just because of that, I was like, oh, I am so big in mental health. Like, this is my passion. But I do think it stuck with me. And I think slowly throughout the years, like in college, I realized that I was just naturally interested in it and gravitated towards it. I worked with some therapists in college to try to, build something with them to make it easier for them to run their practices and with their clients.
mm,
It was a project, didn't turn into anything.
mhm,
But around COVID, when I was still at Google, I started thinking more about, what I wanted to spend my energy on. And I obviously that was a time where a lot of people started talking about mental health and started realizing the importance of it more broadly as a society. Because I think, before that, it was the people who kind of knew and were interested in mental health and the people who are like, oh, I don't really know too much about it. COVID was definitely, I guess, an equalizer where everyone kind of dealt with their own things during COVID and therapy became a hot topic. And
sure.
I was really excited to figure out what I wanted to work on next. And for me, it had to be something that I was really passionate about. And mental health is one of those things. And so I really wanted to, for me, build something that helped both the provider side and also the clients. Because in healthcare, a lot of times incentives are not aligned where things help the patient. And so it's like, great, let's make everything really easy and inexpensive, but that's sort of at the cost of the provider. And so for me, it was important for me to build something that sort of helped both sides and, enabled and helped providers to get paid well and get paid fairly while trying to make mental health care more accessible.
Yeah, I love that. I love the balance between the two because, like you said, I think they are opposed sometimes, or it feels like we take from one to give to the other. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to digging more into the software and how that actually happens. But I just love that that was the objective from the beginning. So, as far as the story, I mean, let's continue this theme. I'd love to hear kind of the origin story, like how it came about, and um, I guess for some of my own background as somebody who launched a tech or software company a couple years ago in the mental health space as well. The process of like finding the idea and figuring out, is this going to work, and who's this going to help, and how do we do this, like that's a crazy process. And so I'd love to hear just a little bit more about how you decided to take the leap and go specifically this direction with your idea.
Yeah. So I think those are actually two different questions. Like, how did I decide
Cool.
to take the leap? And then how did
Mm,
I end up with this idea? So, as for how I decided to take the leap, I was at Google for several years doing product. I love thinking about product. I'm always someone who is looking at different products and services and automatically thinking about ways to make it better or simpler or easier for people to use. And so that's something that comes natural to me. And I really enjoy that. But
mm,
I think for me, after spending some time there, while it was a great place to grow, I just I wanted to do something where I could feel maybe more directly the impact I was having in a space that I really cared about, right? Google's very big. You're a big company and they have a great mission, but you're kind of one of a bunch of people and you're not as close to the end customer who's using your product. And you're maybe not having the level of impact on people's lives
mm.
that I wanted to have. And I think that combined with, COVID happening, I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to do next. And I was like, now's the best time. I have a lot of energy. I want to pour myself into something, but it has to be something I care about. It can't just be some random thing. And so I was not in it to just create a business that would make a lot of money. For me, like, obviously, that would be great. Like, who doesn't want money? But for me, it was more about having an impact on the world in a way that was meaningful to me And so for me, that was sort of how I came to wanting to do something in the mental health space.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So let's talk about Mentaya in a little more detail. So if people don't know what it is, I'm sure there are some folks out there who don't know what it is. So give me the elevator speech and then we'll go into more detail.
So Mentaya is a platform. We're essentially an out-of-network billing platform. You can think of us as that. But that kind of sounds scary because you're like, ooh, what is out-of-network billing? What do we do? Like, what does that mean for me as a therapist or a psychologist? And so we basically help and empower therapists and psychologists to make their full cash rate while we help their clients actually get money back on therapy through out-of-network benefits. A lot of people don't know that they have insurance plans or insurance benefits that allow them to get money back on services, even if it's out of network. And so if you're seeing a cash pay therapist, you can actually get, depending on your benefits, up to 80% back on the services. And so it's kind of a win-win for both, therapists and psychologists get paid whatever their full rate is, and then their clients or patients get a percentage of their session costs covered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So y'all are, I don't know, you jump in and tell me if this is totally off base, but I think of it kind of like you are greasing the wheels or like automating to some degree the super bill process. Like a lot of us know what Superbills are, but this is like a few steps ahead of that and making that whole process a lot easier for, I think, clients and clinicians. Is that fair?
Yes, that's a great way of explaining it. I think a lot of clinicians do think, oh, I'll just provide my clients a super bill. Like, here's a super bill, and then they'll just deal with it themselves. Because the part of the reason, from what I've heard, why some clinicians don't want to take insurance, 'cause they just don't want to deal with insurance at all. They're like, I can give you a super bill. You can do it yourself. Good luck. Here's some maybe resources or links you can look into. But
Exactly.
oftentimes, if you think about yourself as, you're a clinician, this is your job, and you don't even want to deal with insurance. Imagine the average patient. No one knows anything about insurance. No one wants to deal with it. A lot of people don't even understand what a super bill is or what to do with it. And so we basically take care of all of that so that you and your clients or your patients don't have to do anything related to insurance. We completely try to shield you from ever having to deal directly with insurance companies, and we'll deal with this. We'll take care of it for them, and they just get their money back.
It sounds so nice. It sounds so nice. Yeah. And speaking as a patient, I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've been on the patient side of things and tried to get a super bill for out of network services and submit a super bill. And it's, I have a pretty deep understanding of insurance and how to do it. And it was not easy. It was not easy. And so, anything that we can do to make that process a little simpler for folks goes a long way. And
Yeah.
especially for those of us, like we were talking ahead of time, like we have pretty high ticket service items, in our practice. We're charging thousands of dollars for these services, and anything we can do to help people get some of that money back, and it just makes it a lot easier pill to swallow, I think.
Yeah, because I know that especially with testing, it's often thousands of dollars, and so if people are able to get even 50% of that back, that is so much money that they can get back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That
Do you ever
otherwise,
hear? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say that otherwise would have been left on the table.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Do you have any statistics on like how many plans out there have some out of network benefits? Or I know it's hard to get into details as far as how much, but even just a basic question, because people will push back and they're like, oh, nobody uses out of network benefits. Like my deductible's so high, like it's never going to help. And I'm like, I don't think that's true. Like I think it actually can be helpful if you try it. So do
Yeah.
you have any statistics on all that stuff?
I have statistics from what I've read, from articles I've read online, obviously. And then we obviously have our own data on what percent
Yes.
then people who use Mentaya have out of network or run their benefits through the calculator have out of network benefits. Most plans do have out of network benefits. I will say what you're saying is a real concern. Not every plan with out of network benefits is going to be that helpful, because there are plans that have like $5,000 or $10,000 deductibles, but there's
Hmm.
also a lot of plans. You would be surprised at how many plans we've seen that have, 500, 1,000, even if, 2,000 sounds really high. whether you're doing testing or you're going to therapy sessions, like you hit that pretty quickly and you're still able to get thousands of dollars back on therapy. Like I actually looked into this the other day, and we have helped people get reimbursed. I've always known thousands, right? Like people are getting hundreds or thousands of dollars back. I didn't realize we were in the 10,000s until I looked at the data, and we've gotten several people, like more than $10,000 back on therapy session,
Whoa.
testing, and things like that. And so that is a lot of money that people don't realize sometimes is they're eligible. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think people forget about out of network benefits, at least with the practices that I talk to, or like people that I'm maybe do some consulting with. It's either like I go private pay and make a ton of money and screw all of my clients and don't give anybody access, or I take insurance and screw myself and don't make any money and everybody's sad, But this like out of network benefit thing is it's a real thing, and it can help both parties.
People definitely think it's either one or the other. It's either, I'm private pay, I have nothing to do with insurance and I get paid my full fee and that's it. Or I have to go all the way on the other side. But there is a middle ground where you can still get paid your full fee and your clients or patients can actually save money on therapy and people or testing. And people oftentimes don't even know their like in-network insurance benefits, let alone out of network. I don't even think most people understand the concept of out of network. There's some study that was saying the like insurance literacy is extremely low in our country. And obviously, insurance companies don't make it easy to understand, but it was some crazy stat around, I might be butchering this, but it was something like 50% or something of college graduates did not understand insurance. It was something. Don't quote me.
It's not surprising.
I don't remember the exact stat, but it was something surprising.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy. I think you're right. So there's so much to dig into there as far as like how we can help people understand. But I think talking about the platform might bring it to life a little bit. So maybe now's a good time just to talk about what this actually looks like in real life. Like what Mentaya does, like how do we use it? What's the process? So let's go there for a little bit.
Yeah. So I'll start with, and obviously I know you're using the platform, but we have basically two core products. The first one we call an instant benefits calculator, and the second one we call like our claim submission tool or like automated Superbill submission tool. And so I'll start with the first one, which is our instant benefits calculator. This is a really nifty widget that you can use, put on your website, send to clients. But essentially all it asks for are your client's name, insurance member ID, and date of birth. And then from that, we can automatically calculate their benefits and estimate how much they might be able to get reimbursed for therapy. We let them know, things like their deductible, what they have to hit first, how much they can expect to get reimbursed afterwards. And so this is a really useful tool for therapists who are looking to, or clinicians who are looking to attract more clients. Because when you're having that initial call with them and, inevitably they ask, oh, what's your fee? Then you can say, instead of just being like, oh, I don't take insurance and this is what it costs, you can say, here's what it costs. You might have these benefits that allow you to get reimbursed for a percentage of the cost of my services. And so that definitely makes it easier for potential patients or clients to want to start services with you because you're like, oh, it's not as expensive as I originally thought.
Right. Well, and I think I told you before we started, we're using that benefits checker in our practice. That's been our main use of Mentaya. And it's great. Just to describe it, like from a practitioner standpoint, we have it, just bookmarked on the browser for our scheduling team. And when they're on a call with somebody and, it's an out of network or, client, we don't take their insurance, they just jump on the benefits checker and literally, it's like 10 seconds to put the information in, and they can tell them right there, oh, this is what it would cost, or this is how much money you might get back from your insurance plan, even though we're out of network. And it's helped us convert a lot more private pay clients than that we otherwise would have with, just saying, oh, our fees, whatever, 3,000 and good luck,
Yeah. And I think
so it's super cool.
Yeah. That's awesome to hear. A lot of practices also, I don't know if you have it on your website, but
we don't have the widget on the website. We're just, doing
Oh,
all those
that's
scheduling
an
calls.
opportunity as well. A lot of practices will put it. I've seen so many creative things people have done with it. One thing we suggest is putting it on your website so that prospective clients or patients who go to your website can immediately see, especially juxtaposed with where your fee is, instead of just like, oh, here's my fee or here's the fee
Mhm.
for these services. It's like, here's the fee, but here you might have out of network benefits. And so they can check it themselves as well. So you can potentially cast for people who don't even get to the point where they're having an intake call. We've also seen people we have like a link, which it sounds like you bookmarked, that you can put anywhere. Some people put at the end of their, email signatures. People put it on their Psychology Today profiles. People put it in all these different places where they're essentially doing marketing for themselves to say, hey, I know I don't take insurance, but you might be able to use your insurance to get money on my.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes. Yeah, you can put that link everywhere, I suppose. Yeah, these are
Yeah.
great ideas. Cool. So that's kind of the first part of your product. And then the second part?
So the second part is our actual claim submission tool. And so if you think about just the chronological order, you get some client who's like, oh, great, I didn't realize I had these benefits. Sure, let's start. I would love to, do testing or start therapy sessions with you. And it's like, okay, great. But then the client is like, okay, cool. Like now I know I have these benefits. Like, how do I actually use them? And so without Mentaya, generally you're like, oh, well, you can, I can give you a super bill or you can call your insurance company, you can, figure that out yourself. With Mentaya, what practitioners can then say is, hey, I use Mentaya, fully optional, up to you if you want to use it, but they can take care of submitting the super bill or the claim for you such that you don't have to do anything. And so it's also important to know it's not just submitting it, because sometimes you submit it, it gets rejected. The insurance company is like, oh, this doesn't qualify or you need to change this and that. And so we take care of all of that, the follow-up process for them so that they don't have to basically be on the phone with insurance and like, what does this thing mean? Why did I get rejected? And so we take care of all of that so that you're covered.
Yeah. Say more. What do you mean when you say we take care of all of that? Like, is it, the client, the claim gets submitted and then does the client hear anything after that point? Or is it all happening in the background? Y'all are just doing it. Like, what's that experience from the client side?
That's a really good question. So the way that it generally works on the client side is I'll start with the provider side, actually. So we
Okay.
basically, on the provider side, we just need to know when the sessions happen. We essentially skip the generating a super bill step and just go straight to just verifying a session, submitting a claim. So what that means is we just need to know that the session has happened. And so we can like send you a text, you say yes, it's a HIPAA compliant text, or you can like click a button in our platform to be like, yes, this session happened. So then we go ahead and, we can submit the claim automatically to the insurance company. And then what happens is we'll monitor it and get automatic updates from the insurance company to just make sure that it's going through. Sometimes insurance will come back and say, hey, we actually need, this extra paperwork or something. And then so we have a team on our end who will take care of that and, resubmit it until it goes through. Sometimes we'll get on the phone with insurance companies to figure out what's going on. And so we do all of that behind the scenes. The client and the provider get notified occasionally when it's like, hey, just wanted to let you know, it might be a little bit more delayed because the insurance company requested this, additional paperwork that we need to take care of. But, we've taken care of that already. And we generally don't need client or provider input after, besides just like, yes, the session has happened. So we take care of everything after the fact, but we'll kind of keep you posted and you can see your, claim status in your portal of things that you've submitted.
Sure. This might be a nuanced question specific to testing. Maybe it happens with therapy as well. So if you're not sure about this, no worries. But something that we run into specifically with in-network, but I've heard stories where it happens without a network too, is the pre-authorization process. And, insurance companies will kick claims back because we didn't have the correct pre-authorization for the services. Have you noticed that coming up with, through the system, or is there anything to say about that from y'all's side or how you handle that?
Let's take a break to hear from a featured partner. Y'all know that I love therapy notes, but I am not the only one. They have a 4.9 out of 5-star rating on trustpilot.com and Google, which makes them the #1 rated electronic health record system available for mental health folks today. They make billing, scheduling, note-taking, and telehealth all incredibly easy. They also offer custom forms that you can send through the portal. For all the prescribers out there, Therapy Notes is proudly offering e-prescribe as well. And maybe the most important thing for me is that they have live telephone support 7 days a week, so you can actually talk to a real person in a timely manner. If you're trying to switch from another EHR, the transition is incredibly easy. They'll import your demographic data free of charge, so you can get going right away. So if you're curious, or you want to switch, or you need a new EHR, try Therapy Notes for 2 months, absolutely free. You can go to thetestingpsychologist.com/therapy notes and enter the code TESTING. Again, totally free, no strings attached. Check it out and see why everyone is switching to Therapy Notes. Our friends at PAR have released the Neo Inventories Normative Update. The Neo Inventories measure the 5 major dimensions of personality and the most important facets that define each. Now with an updated normative sample that's more representative of the current U.S. population and fewer components for easier purchasing. Visit parinc.com/NEO. Let's get back to the podcast.
So I can't say because I'm not personally monitoring every single claim at this point.
You're not doing this work, Christine? Like you're not sitting in your C-suite, like monitoring claims?
Okay. Oh my gosh. Funny story. Quick tangent. I have called so many insurance companies. So at the very beginning, I was living with insurance because I wanted to feel pain and really understand how to do all that. But anyway, back to the question. I can't say that we've never had that. I know I've vaguely heard of a couple of random instances. I will say it's very infrequent from what I've heard. And in-network is actually quite different from out-of-network. The rules of what happens in network don't always apply to out-of-network. Here's an example. So for associate therapists, a lot of times insurance companies don't allow them to bill in-network because they're not fully licensed, right? They're like pre-licensed clinicians. And so people kind of assume like, oh, if you're pre-licensed, like you can't work with insurance. But a lot of times they'll approve out-of-network claims. And so pre-auth is very common for in-network, but for out-of-network, it's actually not as much of a thing from what I've seen.
Nice. Yeah, that's fair. That's actually a good tip. I did not know explicitly about that pre-licensed issue.
People are surprised.
Yeah, that's great. So then just to kind of recap from the provider side then, because we don't use this portion in our practice, just full disclosure, but it sounds like, so the practice owner or, clinician will quote unquote submit a out-of-network claim through Mentaya. Sounds pretty easy. You put in a little info, confirm that it happened, and then it's off to the races. So the client is not actually doing anything in that process. Is that right?
Correct. We do have the client at least make an account and put in their, insurance information, just so it's kind of an acknowledgement of, hey, I'm creating an account. My provider is going to be doing something with it. I'm aware of that. So the client is involved in that sense as like a one-time thing. Generally, we don't need the client involvement because we basically just ask the practitioner to let us know if the session's happened, and provide a CPT code diagnosis, things like that, so that we can submit a claim.
Right. And then how does the client get paid? Is it a paper check? Is it direct deposit? How does that work?
Yeah, so it depends on what they have set up with their insurance company. Each insurance company is a little bit different. But the default is a check in the mail. But if they have direct deposit set up with their insurance, the insurance company generally just deposits.
Nice. And we have to talk about the fee structure. I assume you'll have to make money somehow. So how does how's the fee work for the client or the practice?
Yeah, so for the benefits calculator, that is optional. So the way that it works, let me take a step back. It is free to use the platform to submit claims for the practice. So submitting claims, we by default charge the client. There is the benefits calculator, which is optional. You don't have to use it, but it is $29 a month per practice, which I feel like for most practices, they're like,
it's a steal.
So inexpensive. Yeah. And again, that's fully optional. So if you are like, I don't want to spend the $29 a month, or I don't need that. I just want to submit claims. You can do that for free. We charge the clients 5%, and that's 5% of the session or whatever claim it is. And so if it's, a $200 session, it's $10. If it's a $2,000 a thing, that is $100. But if you think about how much, and that's part of why the benefits calculator and claim submission go well together, because you can kind of estimate how much you're going to get back. And most times people get back way more than they would pay in the fees. And so it's generally a no-brainer for clients. And then I will say, if you want, we don't say this publicly on our website anywhere, but if you want, as the practice, you can actually take on the cost of the 5% fee. The reason we don't put it online is because we don't want clients to see that there's an option for the practice to do it, in case that reflects poorly on the practice, where it's like, oh, I see that you have the option to do it, but you decided not to do that. And so we think a lot about wanting to make sure that, we're navigating these things carefully. But in case you were curious, you have the option to cover the costs as well.
That is interesting. Yeah, I guess some practices might want to do that. It's good
a lot
to
of
know.
practices actually do that. And then we kind of frame it as, your practice or your therapist has decided to cover the cost so that it's completely free for you. And then that's more like a gift to their clients rather than like the standard.
Right. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. And just thinking about it from a financial perspective for a practice, gosh, trying to think, a $10 charge on a session, if you were going to spend or pay your admin team, I don't know, at least even a half hour to argue with insurance over a claim, that's cheaper than it is to pay the admin team.
That is the goal. The goal is that it is low enough where, we are a business, and so we need to make money somehow, but it shouldn't feel like it's a lot of money. It should be pretty reasonable. Most people are like, this is a no-brainer for me.
Sure. Yeah, that's fantastic. It's been, like I said, super helpful for us. I feel like that $29 for the benefits checker is just a complete steal. It's so easy. Just works well. Yeah, that sounds good. So I would love to hear about, strategies to help this be effective. How to talk to clients about it, how to get people to buy in, so to speak. Maybe we start there and then we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. So we know that a lot of clinicians love scripts. We have a lot of these scripts that you can use with your clients it's in our help center, it's in our product that you can copy and paste. And so generally for the benefits calculator, we kind of talked about this a bit. We recommend putting it in all the different places in which you do any sort of marketing, even if it's your website or, your different therapist directory profiles, so that people know. And then the way that, generally the way that we encourage you to frame it is, you can call yourself an insurance-friendly practice. A lot of therapists like using that term because you don't take insurance, you're insurance-friendly, right? Like you help people use their insurance benefits. But you kind of explain to clients that, hey, just because I don't accept your insurance directly does not mean you can't use your insurance benefits to get part of the cost covered. And so that's really powerful because I think from the consumer or the patient perspective, most people are either like, oh, I just need to find someone who takes my insurance, or I just have to shell out a ton of money. And most people, again, don't know that there's this middle ground of there's something in between where you can get part of it still covered and still find the best, highest quality service that you're able to afford. And so that's sort of how we encourage clinicians to speak about it with their clients. Just make them understand that it's not one or the other. It's not like, oh, I have to take insurance and you can use your insurance. It can be, I don't take insurance, but you can still use your insurance. So that's kind of on the benefits calculator. And on the claim piece, it's essentially like you worded it perfectly, an automated Superbill submission, essentially, plus all the follow-ups, and not just submission, but actually taking care of that. And so generally, we encourage clinicians to talk to all their clients about it, maybe send out an email blast, bringing it up in a session, but in a very like, hey, this is helpful for you. Like, I don't get anything from this, but I just want to help you because, I care about you and I want to help you. But we don't generally have, clinicians put any pressure on their clients to use it. If it's helpful for them, great. If you're one of the few you're already submitting your Superbills and it's like going well, then that's great for you. But a lot of people need help on that or don't even understand how it all works. And so just asking and checking in with your clients to see if this might be helpful for them is a great way to start.
Yeah. I mean, I have to think it's a selling point for a lot of private pay practices to do a service for the client and skip that step of them needing to submit a super bill, which can be complicated and challenging. Yeah. Have you found, at least thus far, like particular practices that seem to benefit a lot from Mentaya, or any practice profiles that or use cases, I guess, that lend itself more to being successful with it?
That's a really good question. We get a lot of emails about, oh my gosh, like I used the benefits calculator and I filled my practice with a bunch of private paid clients that I, was struggling with before. So we get a lot of these emails. I'm trying to think about the success stories or like a specific type of profile. I think generally what we tend to see is, there's solo practices and there's group practices. The solo practices that seem to do really well with Mentaya kind of try to use it. I think, actually the common thing is they try to put it everywhere they can and use it with as many clients as they can. I think those are the practices that see the most success because then you're getting, as many clients to understand, you're educating as many people on their out-of-network benefits as possible. And hopefully a lot of them end up wanting to start services with you. And then on the claim submission piece, that helps a lot with retention. So if you've ever had this might be more, traditional talk therapy, but if you ever have clients go from, hey, can we go from weekly sessions to bi-weekly or monthly? It's getting kind of expensive. If you do stuff like that, that's where we've helped the most, where, people start realizing, it's kind of expensive. And so you can say like, totally, if you want, I just wanted to let you know, you might have these benefits that allow you to get money back on therapy. Have you been submitting your Superbills? Because that could actually cut the cost by, 50% or 70% or whatever it is. And you can continue seeing me every single week. So I think those are examples, like very concrete examples of how it's been helpful for.
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit and ask another question about the pricing, just to clarify it. So the 5% number makes sense. The clients pay 5% of the session fee. So just to be super clear, like for us, where we're submitting, we'll call it a single claim that might be, I don't know, $2,000. I think you used that earlier. So is it priced per claim or like per hour of service? They might be the same thing. But, if we submitted a $2,000 bill, essentially, then is it 5% of the 2,000 versus like 5% of our hourly rate, I guess?
It's 5% of the total claim. It ends up being the same thing because you end up either having a bunch of CPT codes at different rates that all add up, but it's just 5% of the full bill for the client. But most clients, it's going to be very obvious. You either have, decent out-of-network benefits, which a lot of people do, and you're like, this is a no-brainer because I wouldn't do this otherwise myself. Or you're like, I have a $20,000 deductible and this does not make sense. And so generally it's pretty obvious. We also have the pricing on our website. We're pretty transparent about our pricing and how we make money. It's like literally one of the tabs on our website. So for anyone listening, you can just go on our website and click around to learn more.
Yeah. I appreciated that when we were signing up. Super clear. Let me see. I was going to jump back to the strategies and the success stories, but maybe on the opposite side. So, have you found that there are any practices that are not a good fit or have like struggled with it? Any, I guess, exclusionary factors, if that's a thing?
The only thing I can think of, it's very specific to an insurance company. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas does not, how before I said that associate therapists actually or pre-licensed clinicians oftentimes are able to get reimbursement. An exception to that is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas. And so we've seen a couple practices where we're just like, sorry, we just can't submit claims for your pre-licensed clinicians because they're just going to get rejected. So they just have a policy that they don't accept insurance claims out of network, or probably in network as well, from pre-licensed clinicians. But that's the only thing I can think of where that was just like, we're so sorry about that. And, in a lot of cases we try, and we do have a risk-free, this is probably important to mention. We have a risk-free guarantee where if we submit a claim and we charge you or your client and it doesn't go through successfully, then we'll give a full refund of our fees. So we don't just submit it and say, all right, that's it. We actually really make sure that it goes through. And, if it either doesn't, or if you've been waiting for an exorbitant amount of time and we still can't figure out how to do it, we'll just give you a full refund of our fees, because we never want to make money for a service that we weren't able to deliver on.
That's great. That's good to know. Okay. Blue Cross, I know there are some folks listening. I've heard so many horror stories about Blue Cross of Texas from
really?
the community. Yeah, it's been a whole discussion point over the last couple of years. Yeah, in my Facebook group of psychologists, they're known for just being terrible. So let me maybe we start to close in talking about how y'all are a little bit different from some of the other options out there on the market. The biggest one I know about is Reimbursify. I think there are a couple others maybe when I was doing the research, but if people were asking like, why should I pick you? Of course that's a question. So what would you say to folks?
Yeah. So obviously I've heard of Reimbursify. I think there are a couple other options out there. A lot of them have actually shut down, I think, from what I've seen. But at least the difference between us and Reimbursify, I can't say that I know enough about them to know like exactly how they do things. Just anecdotally from what I've heard, the main differences are we actually make sure the claim goes through. I think, I'm scared to say this, I don't know if this is fully accurate, but from what I've heard, they'll just submit the claim and then like they don't really track I don't know if you know what happens to it, things like that. And so that's the main difference for us, where we have this, risk-free guarantee where we either get it through or you get a full refund of our fees. Another thing is I think they charge the clinician some amount.
Yes.
The clients can file claims, whereas for us, it's free if your client pays for the claims. And then I think the main thing that I've heard, and this is anecdotal from just, obviously it's a little biased because we hear from the customers who move over to us.
Of course.
Right. And so they say our customer support is a lot better. Like a lot of times we've heard that, they're trying to cancel their account on Reimbursify. They can't cancel it because you have to like contact them and they just never respond. And so you're just paying for this thing. You can't cancel it. And so for us, we always make sure that we make it easy to cancel. Even our benefits calculator, we don't lock you in. It's month to month. We should probably build an annual subscription at some point, but we genuinely, like, if it's useful, subscribe and use it. If it's not useful, you can pause it. And so I feel like we're very provider friendly and also client friendly in that way. And if you ever have any questions or issues, you can always email our support team. We have a direct support line. We generally respond within 1, if not 2 business days to your request. And we won't ever do things like lock you in and like you can't cancel your account. Like even sometimes people are like, I forgot to cancel my benefits calculator, but I didn't use it last month. Can I get a refund? And we're like, yeah, sure. If you're not using it, you can get a refund. So I think that's kind of probably the main differences between us and that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, customer service goes a long way. It can account for a lot of even like product issues if you have great customer service. Not to say that there are product issues, but being able to talk to somebody and actually figure it out helps a lot. Yep. That's fantastic.
That is very important. That's something that it's like very important for us, because I think a lot of it is it's a space a lot of people don't really know much about, like out of network insurance. It's kind of scary, and so we really want to make sure that we equip everyone with the right resources to be able to use it as effectively as possible.
Nice. I love that. I appreciate you spending so much time with me. Is there, anything that I missed, anything that you like to highlight about your platform or, share with folks as we start to wrap up?
Oh, I think the one thing we talked about right before is you have an affiliate link,
Of
and
course.
and this is, I guess, a gift for all the listeners, where anyone who is listening, you can try out the benefits calculator for free for a month, using the code. I think it was testing psychologist. So
Yep.
TESTING PSYCHOLOGIST.
They'll figure it out. They know how to spell it.
Testing
Yeah.
psychologist. And that's the only thing that you would pay for as a therapist, or psychologist on the platform. And so essentially, if you use the code, you can try everything out for free for a month. See how you like it, try it out, put it everywhere, put it on your website, try using it in your intake calls, and just give it a shot.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll make sure to put the affiliate link there in the show notes so that folks can access it pretty easily. And if they, let's just say, are driving, they forget about it, whatever, what's the easiest way just to learn about Mentaya, check it out once they get to the office?
Yeah, so you can email our support team. It's support@mentaya.com. Super straightforward. You can even say, hey, what was the, link on this podcast today? I listened to it. We'll send you all of that.
Oh, nice.
Any
Nice.
questions you have, we'll respond to.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's super cool. I'm just so grateful to have gotten the opportunity to chat with you for a little bit. Like I said, we've been using this benefits checker. We love it. Our admin team loves it. Clients are liking it. And I'm grateful for the time that you decided to spend here with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Always grateful to have you here. I hope that you take away some information that you can implement in your practice and in your life. Any resources that we mentioned during the episode will be listed in the show notes, so make sure to check those out. If you like what you hear on the podcast, I would be so grateful if you left a review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you're a practice owner or aspiring practice owner, I'd invite you to check out the Testing Psychologist mastermind groups. I have mastermind groups at every stage of practice development: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. We have homework, we have accountability, we have support, we have resources. These groups are amazing. We do a lot of work and a lot of connecting. If that sounds interesting to you, you can check out the details at thetestingpsychologist.com/consulting. You can sign up for a pre-group phone call and we will chat and figure out if a group could be a good fit for you. Thanks so much. The information contained in this podcast and on the Testing Psychologist website are intended for informational and educational purposes only. Nothing in this podcast or on the website is intended to be a substitute for professional psychological, psychiatric, or medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please note that no doctor-patient relationship is formed here, and similarly, no supervisory or consultative relationship is formed between the host or guests of this podcast and listeners of this podcast. If you need the qualified advice of any mental health practitioner or medical provider, please seek one in your area. Similarly, if you need supervision on clinical matters, please find a supervisor with an expertise that fits your needs.